a minute to familiarize you with the format of this webinar today. Following the introduction, Ram will share his insights about the impact of this crisis and how leaders should navigate through these tough times. Ram will conclude his session at 11:45 a.m. At 11:45, Ram will take questions. Q&A session will be moderated by Raghu Putini, CEO of eGen. At 12 p.m., Christo will present his insights on COVID-19. At 12:15, we'll have Christo answer some of the questions that are on top of your mind. You can use the Q&A panel of this webinar to ask any questions during this session. This webinar will conclude at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. As you all know, the topic of this webinar is how leaders should prepare to weather COVID-19. While the coronavirus continues to disrupt the global business, we as business leaders look for cues from those who have led in uncertain times like these for guidance. We look for most trusted resources to help us navigate through these unprecedented times. This is touching businesses across the globe, and it continues to wreak havoc in industries around the world. But as entrepreneurs, we strongly believe all of us is smarter than any of us. Remember, we are all in it together, and in these times, more than ever, we need to reiterate the same. The fact remains that this is a complex and unprecedented event, which means that our path through it will be unpredictable. To navigate through these uncertainties, we at eGen have handpicked world's renowned thought leader, author, and CEO, Coach Ram Charan, and a very seasoned CEO who has gone through these uncertain times and rebuilt himself more than once, Christo Popper. I would like to take a minute to introduce them before we get started. Ram Charan is a world-renowned business strategist, author, and sought-after CEO coach who has spent past 35 years working with executives at companies like GE, Bank of America, Verizon, etc. With intimate relationships with a series of powerful CEOs, he helps leaders face their toughest challenges in the areas of growth, talent development, corporate governance, and profitability. Charan is author of more than 25 books that have sold more than 2 million copies in over a dozen languages. Three of his books were bestsellers on Wall Street Journal, including Execution, which he co-authored with Larry Bossidy, former CEO of Honeywell. Christo is a seasoned CEO, entrepreneur, and investor with over 30 years of experience in senior positions in different industries. Christo's extensive corporate background spans 3 decades as a senior executive with multinationals like McKinsey, Shell, Saab Miller, InBev, etc. Christo has also started and managed over 20 companies in different industries across Europe and Asia. At present, he is the founder and CEO of Fast Track, that is one of the fastest growing consulting companies in the world. Fast Track system and tools are currently being used by over 400 companies in 20 countries. Christo is also an advisor to more than 40 CEOs and executive teams in different industries and mentors a number of startups and young entrepreneurs. Without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Ram.
Thank you.
Ram.
Thank you very much. I like to be very brief. This is the time where we must believe that this shall pass, but what we do in the interim. So I have here a number of points that each of us should seriously consider as we go through this difficult period. Here, as I mentioned, the most important point throughout of my conversation with you is the resilience, is the belief, it is the confidence that we are going to go through this. At the same time, one size does not fit all. So my point number one is that every single company, every single leader should prepare a cash flow in, cash flow out, week by week, and think in terms of worst scenario, not some ultimate, not some doomsday. And my request here is that we should think about, at least in America, to the end of August. I don't see any real let up before then. End of August, early September. And here, for many, this cash flow is going to be negative. So in doing that, the reason is that right now we are in the first week of April. This particular crisis will give us some signals as we introduce tests. Abbott has tests now. Chinese have been using the tests and they are available. A French company has come along with the test and they're proving very good in France. Another company in California has produced the tests. So the tests are now coming in. And as the tests get really effective, the economy can start moving up. But that will take about 3 to 4 months. But the tests have started. And by doing that, if we can have people who are negative, they can go to work. Those who test positive, they're taken care of. So that's where I come out that if we start these tests, about 1 million have been done. These tests in about 90 days will begin to segregate this. And then by that time, we hope the three trials are going on for the drugs. If they begin to get approved, and I think one is under approval, so we begin to see some impact sometime in about July period of it. So the revving up will start somewhere in late August, early September. The key here is the honesty of cash flow, week by week. I had a meeting on the phone where I was one of the several listeners to a CEO of a very large company, and his discussion to his people was straightforward. I am running the company for cash. Get cash out from working capital, receivables, postpone some capital expenditures. Don't cut R&D. Don't cut sales force. For his company, capital intensive, it's about 20 billion in sales. My point clear, specific, razor sharp, what needs to be done. Great leaders tend to be optimistic. On the other hand, the key point is realistic. You are not driven to make money here. Profit is not the first objective. First objective is cash flow. If you don't have it, how do we get it? I'll come to more specific items. So in doing that, point number 2, that wherever you can collect your cash, because the cash shortage is throughout the value chain. You got to talk to customers, see what their pain points are, how you can help, and how they can help you in cash collection. If you have the credit lines, download those. There may be some drastic actions you have to take. And this is beginning to happen, like in Hyatt hotel chain right now. And that is, if you don't have cash, you can't get cash, you don't have much of a choice to deal with the reduction of cost and maybe furloughing the employees, maybe reducing number of employees, simply because if you don't have cash, you can't get cash, then the rest of the company will be under tremendous pressure and maybe totally jeopardized. And therefore, more employees will be jeopardized. So here you got to come to terms what you need to do. And to do that, get ahead of the curve, because timing matters. This thing can get worse. In America, as the president announced yesterday, for the next 2 to 3 weeks, it's going to be worse. Now, here, the next part is, this is defensive. This is going through the storm. The other part is, as leaders, have to believe we're going to go through. The storm will die. So are we going to be ready for the silver lining coming up, sunshine coming up, the dawn coming up? To do that, you got to see, is your business going to change? In many cases, it will. In doing that, you got to ask the question for your customers, existing ones, what is their pain point going to be? What will be their compelling need going to be right away? And how do we adjust ourselves? And second, what will be new need for new customers? Should we be talking to them now? All customers are very busy. So here you're using technology right to the point and saying, how do we conceive our new company configuration? If we're using technology, will we need fewer layers? Will we be sharper and more focused? Will we be reprioritizing our product development? Will we be getting out of some of the things we have been doing because they will not be any more needed? This is redesigning your core for the new game. You may have to size your business down and start again. As I repeat, the cash is the blood supply of a business, and then this will begin to move. Now, why did I pick 5 months? I begin to see what China has done. It all began in early December or so, and they begin to really move in January. It's about 3 months so far. They're gearing it up. Factories are open, 90% are open, but they're slow. They can catch the demand inside, but there's a lot of demand they used to supply outside. And therefore, it's taken them almost 4 months. And I'm saying that our case in America is a bit more delayed. It's going to take some time to catch up. And that's why I'm picking the month of late August and going forward. And now we're saying here that train your people to use digital techniques the way we are using now. It takes less time to close your conversation. We probably, those who are larger companies, need fewer middle management as we go along, because the decisions will be database. People will not have face-to-face as much, and therefore build your data capabilities, analytic capabilities. Now, the mind of leadership, the psychology of leadership, first and foremost, have faith, confidence. This will go away. Second, has resilience. Third, be intellectually honest and have some optimism. Keep your mind busy, not commiseration, not gossip. If you have time to do something, learn something new, keep your employees busy. So this way, don't waste this crisis. Every crisis has some information. This information is, we were not prepared. This information is, we need to pull together everybody. This information is that we have to manage conservatively when it comes to cash. This information is that the consumer demands will be compelling, will be different, and how do we really go after that? Now, the testing being done by Abbott is being done by Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. There is a company that is doing the genetic testing. It is approved. It's a company in California. It's called CFIED. It's the first on demand test. It can do now in 15 minutes. And there is one in France that can do in about 15 minutes also. The CDC in America had now 2 tests. CDC bungled the first test. The protocol for those are easily available. Chinese have been using that. Chinese actually have been using American methodology to do that. So I'm optimistic there. And therefore, in a very simple way, these are the steps. Inspire your people. Tell them honestly what's happening in your company. Tell them if they have time and they don't know what to do in this time, learn something. There are so many things available online to do that. It is the mind being dull, not occupied, causes often the sentiments, the symptoms of depression. Don't let that happen. We're going to go through this, and I begin to see something in August. Before August, hopefully. If not, focus on these major items. And so that's a very quick, clear summary. And let's open to questions.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you so much for a quick, that's very right, clear message. We received a number of questions from the attendees across the globe. there is one question is consistently coming up was, what are the top 2-3 priorities that every business leader should focus on right now?
Yeah. The first and foremost, your own resilience and inspiring people to be resilient. And if they have time on their hand, they should be busy learning something, thinking about customer, linking with suppliers, and say what needs to be done. Second is this cash flow. Learn the cash flow. Managing by cash flow is different from managing by for profits. And here, see what is the new compelling need is going to arise because the crisis do change. These are the two most critical priorities.
Okay. And also many questions around pivoting the business. Any examples how business are going to pivot some of these resources in during these times?
Yeah. The first part is that in many cases, the ramp up will be slow and that many of the priorities of the customers will change. And that means that some products that you thought will be long-term may not be needed now. And some products you think will be needed now. So you talk to your customers and say, what is their initial compelling need? Is it digitization? Is it the data they need to really get very quickly as a single source of truth? Those are the things so that the people can tap that data by technology means and at home and not necessarily meeting face to face. Those are the kinds of things that you can do for your customer in a short period of time because many things can be done in 4 weeks.
And also many questions around, is it going to be recovery, is it going to be we or you? I mean, how long? I mean, that's a lot of these questions are in every leader's mind.
It's a very good question, Raghu. I want you to know that follow first the pattern in China. They will create a faster recovery because the consumption within China, and they may have to give coupons. They may have to give some incentives for people to invest, spend money. So it will be within China a little faster, not elsewhere, simply because you can create supply, you have to create demand. Some demand will be pent-up demand, but I will not bet on V recovery. It will be a little slow recovery.
And we have leaders from across all industries. Do you have any insight in terms of which industries are in that level 1, level 2, level 3? What I mean level 1, the way we have categorized this entire virus into the impact. So which industries are going to be quickly recovered? Which industries are going to be little time taken in this whole journey?
Yeah, so there are some assumptions we got to watch. If the people going to do a larger portion of their work compared to before via technology like this, we will have impact on airlines, on hotels, where they were the major venue of face-to-face physical meetings. These are the ones that will be, in a major way, will be affected. Small businesses will be affected for lack of cash. The positive side will be the healthcare companies, as you all know. It's beginning to go up and they're finding drugs. Help is needed. Supplies to healthcare industry will be very positive going forward. So each industry people need to see this, what is their best guess and get some early warning signals from their customers.
Okay. We have many leaders joined from India across the globe. I mean, I know you took an example of mostly the US recovery September, early September time. What are your thoughts for the rest of the world?
I think that's very difficult for me to say. Some parts of the world are pretty secure, reasonably good, but others, Europe in a great difficulty, Italy great difficulty, India will be in a great difficulty. Pakistan, Bangladesh, we have not heard much, but it's going to be great difficulties because here the financial systems, here large population, and the only answer that I can see that they're doing it like in India has to be a real lockdown all the way so that the virus goes away. Meanwhile, the issue of economy not working, the cash flow is not flowing, this is going to have a very difficult time.
So what some of the measures leaders can take now to bring more, I mean, I know you talk a lot about efficiency and effectiveness, and what some of the measures on the both fronts?
Yeah, the measures, as I mentioned, Raghu, is first diagnose your cash situation, see how do you get it. Second, get ahead of the curve. And if you don't have the cash, then you think about sizing your company. Get ahead of the curve because you do not want to jeopardize the whole company. Third, reprioritize your work so that when this thing begins to clear, that you get out of the gate in a positive way. This is something you don't take too many risks. And then continue contact with the customers and look what the compelling needs will be.
Okay. That's all, Ram. Thank you so much for your time. And wherever you are, stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody be safe, please. Thanks very much.
Yeah, now over to Christo. Christo, you're on mute.
Okay. Raghu, shall we start with some questions, or you want me to go ahead and
No,
share?
why don't you share your perspective, the way Ram shared his perspective overall? Just
Okay, I mean, my perspective is very much in line with what Ram shared, with maybe some differences. First, I think the crisis is not unprecedented, and it's not unpredictable. Mortality of people and companies has been going up and down for generations. So there's nothing new. Actually, if you trace it, the mortality has not even reached extremes that it has reached over the last 100 years. So I think it's not unprecedented, and it's not unpredictable. I think the elements that are predictable are actually more than the elements that are unpredictable. My second thought, Raghu, is I don't think we're speeding down. Speed is a relative concept. If you fly on an airplane and you see nothing moving around you, you don't understand if you're speeding down or slowing down, speeding up or slowing down. So speed is a relevant concept. So we cannot say that companies are speeding down or speeding up. It depends how you're moving compared to the other guys. And if you ask me what are the three or what are the main jobs of a leader, I think each one of us has three key jobs at the moment. Number one is to create energy. The first job of a leader today, I think, is to create, sustain, and channel energy in the right direction. Number two is to create clarity. And I think we need to create clarity about three topics. Number one, how we're going to survive. Number two, what is the long game? What is the end game? And the good leaders will be able to do this dance between the two, between survival and the long game. If we only focus about survival, we're not going to get many people passionate about it. So having this balance, I think, is the second critical job. And the last one is to establish a rhythm. Our lives are absolutely disrupted. You know, in our company, we used to take 5-6 flights a week. Now we don't fly. People used to go to the office. Now they don't go to the office. Now this rhythm is disrupting the way we think, the way we operate, the way we work. So I think it is our responsibility to reestablish a new rhythm throughout the organization. So these are my 3 points. And why I say it's predictable. There are two elements that I think are unpredictable in this situation. The first one is, of course, the medical situation. What's going to happen with this virus? But even if you go to the most negative scenario, you will see that the situation is not gloom. I mean, it's not the end of the world. The second unpredictable element, in my view, are the governments. For good or for bad, we very much depend on the decisions of the governments. And if you look around the globe, you'll see if there are 100 governments, there are 100 different responses. So these are the unpredictable elements. If we take the unpredictable elements away, what is left? I mean, the infrastructure is out there. The infrastructure, in the way that the whole economy operates, is still alive. The laws of physics operate, and they will operate the same way. Human nature is not going to change. The behavior of cash is not going to change. There will be losers and winners. This is not something new. So I think what is going to happen actually is pretty predictable. So in a summary, these are my views, and we had a discussion with you before that, and I would love to take some questions, maybe starting from you.
Around a lot of questions are around specific to industry, and how is restaurant industry is going to be, how is going to be some of the luxury item industry. So a lot of industry specific questions. Do you have any insight into how they need to diagnose their industry, their customer? Are there any practical insights or actions that each leader in their specific industry, can you walk them through how they need to assess step by step?
Yeah, I think when we analyze this whole picture, we should keep reminding ourselves of what Peter Drucker said. The only purpose of a business is to keep and maintain to create and maintain a customer. That's it. So throughout this crisis, we should only ask ourselves one question. Are we going to be able to create and maintain a customer and to deliver a product and service that costs us less to deliver than the customer is willing to buy? That's it. And if you allow me to share my screen,
yes,
now I will try to describe this. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Christoph.
So let's assume, let's take a big company, for example. If you're Procter & Gamble and you're selling shampoos and you're asking yourself, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? When we're going to get out of this crisis? Is it going to be U-shape or V-shape? Actually, the question you're asking is, this is my customer. Is my customer going to continue to buy my products? Is my customer going to buy more of my products or less of my products? And is my customer going to pay the same price or more or less? So these are the only questions you have to figure out. So actually, you need to understand what is going to impact the behavior of your customer. Now, the behavior of your customer is impacted by two different types of forces. One is the emotional one, and the other one is the rational one. The rational one, in our case, is cash. The emotional one is pretty simple. People will follow Maslow's hierarchy, and they will be driven by wants and needs. So when you figure out what is going to impact how the behavior of my customer will change regarding the shampoos, then you're going to decide, is he going to use the same products? Is he going to use more or less of these products? How much is he willing to pay? And if you have some clarity, there are actually only 5 elements that you need to try to discover. How is my customer going to get information about my products after the crisis? How is he going to take decisions about these products? How is he going to buy actually the product? How is he going to use the product? And how is he going to give feedback about the product? So this is, if you're selling a fast-moving consumer good, you need to focus and understand the behavior of the consumer. But a lot of people say, yeah, but this is business to consumer. I'm business to business. I'm supplying plastic bottles to Procter & Gamble. Now, if you're supplying plastic bottles to Procter & Gamble is going to decide how many bottles to buy and when to buy. Guess who is the driving force? This lady. And then you can say, yeah, but I'm supplying the plastic to the manufacturer of plastic bottles that goes to Procter & Gamble. Guess who is the decision maker? This lady here. And then you're this chemical plant that is supplying the plastic that goes to the plastic manufacturer that goes to Procter & Gamble. Guess who is the decision maker? This lady. So what I'm trying to say is that to understand what's happening, you need to dismantle your business model and to understand the whole supply chain. And guess who is in the center of the supply chain? At the end of the supply chain, there is a physical individual. And it doesn't matter if you're business to consumer, business to government, IT, consulting services, manufacturing, there is always a consumer at the end of the chain. So in our experience, you need to understand how this consumer behavior will change and how this is going to travel throughout the supply chain. Three things travel throughout the supply chain. Number one is information. Number two is cash. And the third one is products. And like Ram said, the one you should focus is cash. So if you ask me how to approach the business, how to look at it, go all the way down to the physical consumer, understand what is going to impact his behavior, and try to understand how cash will behave throughout the supply chain. And I think, Raghu, three things will happen. Some industries are going to continue like that, maybe go down and then recover. I think travel, leisure are examples of these industries. Some industries will take a huge hit and they will start their gradual decline. I think retail, in the way we understand retail, is going to go down the drain. And some industries, actually, this crisis will catapult, it will be a catalyst because they're going to go up like this. Digitalization, or e-commerce, logistics. This industry, I think, will experience an unprecedented growth. So what is the biggest question? I mean, we talk to hundreds of companies across the world, and I see two different patterns of behavior of CEOs. When you talk about disruption, some CEOs come to me and say, okay, how can I understand how disruption will impact my business? So this is one type of behavior. And some CEOs come to me and say, okay, give me the latest disruptions so I can use them to disrupt my industry. So these are the two different behaviors that will shape how companies are going to get out of this. That's why we believe the first job of the leader is to create clarity. Everybody should be clear about the situation. And then we need to manage the company on two different levels. One is the crisis, which is easy. I mean, now you go on the internet, everybody's giving you advice how to manage the crisis. But the more interesting one is the post-crisis one. And what we're going to do here, and the winners and the losers, and the separation between the winners and losers will come from the ability to see the big picture, creativity. And what do I mean by creativity? To try to understand where value will continue to be created after the crisis. And the last one is guts. And what do I mean by guts? Some businesses will have to change their business model. Some businesses will have to completely redesign either their portfolio or their pricing strategy or their distribution. And some businesses will have to completely change the industry where they compete. To take these decisions, you need guts. And this is the guts that Kodak didn't have. That's why they are dead. And this is the guts that Fuji had. That's why they are thriving now. So this is my understanding of the situation.
And let's go through the same set of questions that we've gone through, Ram, in terms of the business implications. I mean, what, from your perspective, how long, how deep, and how would, what is your perspective? Ram is saying, I know he's giving only from US perspective. I mean, we'll be here at least next 3 months, and post we'll see some recovery. And we have leaders from across the world now. What is your perspective of the rest of the world?
I really don't know, Raghu. And I wouldn't like to make this forecast. Actually, I will try to create a business model that makes the answer to this question irrelevant. The number of people on the planet is not going to change. The infrastructure will be still there. Consumer behavior is not going to change dramatically. Cash doesn't disappear. We all think cash disappears. No, cash does not disappear. Cash changes hands, cash slows down, but cash doesn't disappear. So for me, the question is how to create a situation, how to create a company, how to create an entity that does not depend on the speed of recovery.
And Ram mentioned redesigning the core, Christo, and that seems like a pretty powerful message there. Redesigning the core, restructure the organization. Can you add a little bit more details to it?
Raghu, the first step for me is to understand the bigger picture, to understand what you can control and what you cannot control, to understand what is predictable and what is not predictable, and come up with a business model that will add value in this new scenario. Restructuring comes after that. We cannot talk about restructuring before clarity. So it's a survival mode, and it's about cash, and it's about cash management. And it's a restructuring. It is about your ability to foresee how you're going to create value for the consumer in the future. So how can we talk about restructuring today? You can't.
Are there any examples? I mean, you briefly mentioned about pivoting, and there are some companies have to rechange their business models. Are there any examples that business are able to pivot their resources during times like this?
Yeah, we work with a big fashion retailer, severely hit by the crisis, severely hit. I mean, like when you see in boxing, when somebody's in a knockdown, they start counting. And these guys are at 9. One more and it's a knockout. But we are working with them to develop a strategy that will help them to completely redesign the business model. Completely redesign the business model. Digitalize the whole supply chain, completely change the way consumers buy products, select products, get the products. Complete change of the business model. Raghu, the key question is not how you're going to change your business. The key question is, can you foresee how your customer will change his or her behavior? That's the key question. So if you're not able to understand the whole supply chain, if you're not able to understand the forces that impact your consumer, you cannot redesign your company.
Ram made a couple of very interesting insights around middle managers. He says middle managers are going to go. I mean, there's going to be direct consumer, a lot of digitization, information sharing. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know what the middle manager is. And again, I think it very much depends on how you're going to decide to add value. I mean, I think there is no one answer to this question, Raghu. I really don't think there is no one answer.
And you touched about the energy, Christo. I know this is one area that you talk a lot. I mean, this is one of the most important. Even Ram mentioned about keeping employees busy with learning, and really that's very, very critical. So what are your thoughts? Can you just add 1 or 2 key insights around this overall mindset, energy management, etc.?
You know our thoughts on this. We think it's not business and it's not personal. I think it's personal business. And energy is where the two things meet together. Energy is the capacity to do stuff. If there's no energy, you have nothing. I mean, if it takes you 60 minutes to get out of bed in the morning on a personal level, on a physical level, why should we listen about strategy and organizational structure? No, that it's irrelevant. So we're taking a big beating on our energy, and we see energy at 2 levels. The first one is at physical level. We need to create and sustain sheer physical energy. And it goes down to basics. It goes down to sleep, to good food, to exercise. And I think if we as leaders have the responsibility to help our people to establish a rhythm throughout this new working environment, to sleep well, to eat well, and to exercise. And then you have physical energy. Now, the second one, which is maybe even more interesting, is let's assume you generate this energy, what do you do with it? How you channel it? And you know, energy follows attention. Attention is driven by your thoughts. So we as leaders have to help people to channel their attention to the areas that matter. How do we do that? There are things that we can control, and there are things that we don't control. It is absolutely useless to spend time and thoughts and attention on things that we don't control. So we have to have a clear list of things. This is, guys, this is what we control. This is what we don't control. Don't bother about the stuff that we don't control. We need to establish a filter of the information that our people see, because now we're distracted by hundreds of different information. And if you think about it, most of it is completely useless, and it is a complete energy drain. So I think we as leaders have the responsibility to help people to manage the physical energy and the mental energy, because this is the starting point.
Yeah. So we have a number of questions. I mean, unfortunately, we cannot go all of them. I'll just pick and read out some of the questions. You made a comment about retail will fail. It's going to go down. What is, based on what assumptions that you're making that call? Retail is going to go down.
Retail has two main pillars. Number one is the experience. You want to go and experience what you're going to buy. And number two is actually the purchase and the usage of the products. Now, we are forced to experience purchasing through the internet. And internet gives you a choice that no retail outlet can give. Digital e-commerce gives you convenience that no retail outlet can give you. And all the support function, all the infrastructure, all the delivery services are developing like crazy now. So we are put in a situation where the only advantage of physical brick and mortar retail will be the actual experience of touching the product. That's why I think retail shops will transform from places where you make choices and when you buy stuff to places where you experience stuff. And this, I think, will be a transformation. This transformation was on the way anyway. I think just the current crisis is accelerating this change.
And Crystal, there's a lot of conversations that are happening right now with purpose versus profits. And is again, how do you balance between human aspect versus the business side? Where the balance and how the leaders should address this question now in these times?
Raghu, I mean, I think it is absolutely cynical in these times to talk about profit. And the way we look at it, each one of us, when we make money or when we take a salary, the salary has three purposes. The first purpose of money is to satisfy your day-to-day needs. I mean, you need to eat, you need shelter, you need some security. The second layer is pleasure. You want to go to a nice vacation, or you want to travel, or you want to go to a nice restaurant. And the third layer is the security for the future. Now, we are taking a beating all the way down. So I think now it's absolutely wrong to talk about profit. And the companies, the business units that we have created, this should be the safe shelter for the people who work in the company. And I think the keyword is transparency. I mean, my company has to feed my family, but it has to feed the families of everybody who works in the company. So it is our common goal to protect the company. It is our common goal to make sure that the company goes through the crisis. It's not my company anymore. I mean, this company is feeding the families of everybody. So it is survival over profit. And it is preparing a strong value proposition for when times change.
And plenty of questions. You have a lot of experience working with leaders in India. There's plenty of questions around India. And Ram made a comment. He's not seeing any silver lining in India. So some of the attendees would like to know your perspective in terms of India recovery, the whole business environment.
I mean, Raghu, I'm not brave enough to give advice about India after Ram and yourself. I mean, I don't understand the Indian business environment nowhere near as you guys. So I'm afraid I can't give I wouldn't even dare to share my opinion on this.
And what are the top 2 or 3 priorities that every business leader should focus right now, Crystal?
I think the top One priority is cash, like Raghu said, and like Ram said, and Raghu, I would like to visualize how I imagine cash and how I believe cash should be managed by companies. Now, just imagine a big reservoir, and this reservoir has water. And there are people who bring in water, and there are people who drink the water. And at the same time, there are a lot of leakages here where water goes down. This is how I imagine cash in a company. These are the customers, these are the employees, and these are all fixed costs, variable costs, or whatever. And this is us management. So we need to take decisions about this. And I think the first decision is to make sure that we have plenty of water here. And what is interesting is this part, the employees. Most of the time, the employees don't know how much water the other employees drink, and they don't know how much water is in the tank. I personally believe this should change. And now it is only managers deciding. And in some companies, some people decide that management needs adult supervision. And this is where the trade unions come, because they don't trust that management can take the right decisions. And I think this is our first priority now, to get everybody on the same board and to try to protect the cash we have. Second priority is to create clarity. To create clarity about how do you think consumer behavior will change in the next 3 to 4 months.
Can we talk some few big opportunities for the business leaders in the next 3 to 6 months' time?
Raghu, I mean, I think this is absolutely an amazing opportunity to slow down and to improve the products or services that we're offering. I can give an example with our company. We have been so busy with actually servicing customers that we never had the time to stop and look for opportunities for improvement. I think this is a brilliant time to try to stop and look for opportunities for improvement. It is a brilliant time to do this scenario planning. It is a brilliant time to go and talk to consumers and try to understand their needs better. It is a brilliant time to create on paper new products and services and test assumptions with consumers. It is a brilliant time to shake the tree and to understand who are the talented people, to give them more tasks, to take people to an extreme in terms of try new activities, learn new skills. I think this moment really gives each one of us brilliant opportunity to improve.
So some of the leaders are asking around the balance between the cash flow and the investment for the future.
Can you be more specific?
So managing short-term versus long-term, that's what it is. How do you manage short-term and versus long-term?
I don't know the answer to this question, Raghu. I mean, I can tell you what our decision is. We want to make sure that we can see through the crisis for at least 12 months. We have limited all the expenses to the minimum. We have secured enough water in the tank so we can survive for the next 12 months. We have identified 2 or 3 core products that we believe will be needed after the crisis. And we're investing as much as we can in these 2 or 3 products. So I would split decision in 2. How can we create as much oxygen as possible for the next 10, 12 months? And what are the 1 or 2 activities that we can invest today?
Okay. So Christo, I think that's all we have from the questions perspective. I know there are plenty. We have 10 more minutes left. Any final thoughts from your side for the leaders who are joined on this call from across the world.
Raghu, I will go back to where we started. I think the three key tasks of us today is number one, to generate energy. And I really believe energy should be generated through putting a new rhythm in the way we work and in the way we operate. Number two is to create clarity. I think we need to create clarity about the crisis situation. Everybody in the company should be absolutely clear what are the steps we take in the next 4 or 5 months to survive. And we need to create clarity about what is the plan for the day after. What do you think will happen to the consumer? What are the services we're going to prepare, and how we're going to work on these services today? And the last one is create a rhythm, create habits throughout the company for this interesting time. And I absolutely agree with Ram. I mean, this gives us unprecedented opportunity to learn. It gives us unprecedented opportunity to read more than we were reading before. The biggest challenge is how to put a filter to all the distractions that are coming to us. And we need to limit the time we use WhatsApp. We need to limit the time we use social media. We need to have a very, very, very clear list of the things we can control and things we cannot control, and help the whole organization focus on the things we can control. So this would be my thoughts.
Christo, thank you so much for taking time and sharing some wonderful insights. And so thank you. I mean, I think Nantha, can you give your final comments?
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We sincerely hope that you got some insights and some ways to navigate through this crisis. We will be sharing the recorded session if anyone would like to hear this. And also, if there are still any questions that you would like to ask, you can send that across. We would send them to our panelists and see if they can respond to the same. Before we leave this with a thought that bad companies are destroyed by crisis, good companies survive them, and great companies are improved by them. And we hope that you all build great companies. Thank you so much.